Heather, Meg, and Dan from NEMA. We're very excited about today's Faith in the City discussion. As a reminder, you can use the chat. Make sure you say to everyone, otherwise your discussion will just go to the panelists. So we'd love for everyone to say hello, where they're coming in from, and you can put questions there. Well, I'll be kind of scanning the chat for questions that you might have for the presenters. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Meg, who's going to pass it over to Sharon. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you so much. It's fabulous to see both a bunch of returning faces and voices, and then also some folks who are new to NEMA programs and events. So just as a quick reminder of who we are, the New England Museum Association, we work on behalf of and represent folks who work in museums and museum organizations all across New England. And we are really excited to have everybody here today. And we want to say thank you so much to Sharon for pulling together this panel to talk about her really interesting project on faith in the city and the kinds of things that we as museum folks can be learning from the other communities that share the neighborhoods that we're in. So Sharon, I will pass it along to you. Thank you again.
Thank you. So I first I'm just going to give a quick introduction to the project because I don't want to keep you from this terrific panel. So my name's Sharon. I'm a community curator at the Somerville Museum, which has been serving the city of Somerville since 1897. And so thanks to NEMA for inviting us to be here, and especially to Meg and Heather for their patience and guidance. It was much appreciated. And thank all of you for coming. Especially during these difficult times. The one thing I'll say is that whenever I go to a Faith in a City event, I end up leaving feeling better than when I showed up. And I have the feeling it's going to be the same for you today. So as a brief introduction to the project, Faith in a City is a project exploring local religious groups in the city of Somerville. And we did that through music, photography, video, interviews, and history as a way to better understand the city. And the project includes some congregations that are also just outside Somerville, but where local residents go to worship, and also one group or two that was founded in Somerville, but then later moved to a more permanent location. And the project was created by partnering with 20 local religious groups. And together we produced concerts, talks, panel discussions, and an exhibit at the Somerville Museum. We had 8 local photographers taking pictures of architecture, worship services, prayer, congregation leaders, members, public service projects, and then also through interviews and history, often in the archives of the local religious group, we wrote a history of each group. And often those were translated into the language of worship, again with help from the congregations. We recorded music or recitation in 14 of these communities, which became the soundtrack to the exhibit. So when you entered the museum, you could hear the music looping. And many of those recording sessions were filmed by a nonprofit called the Loop Lab, which trains people of color in audio and video editing and often connects them to jobs. They were terrific, by the way, and they're always looking for work. So if you're in a museum, they're in the city of Cambridge and you might want to check them out. So we thought a good way to introduce you to this project would just be to bring together some members from some of the participating congregations and have them talk about how they think about the idea of community and why they might participate in a project like this, because, you know, being nonprofit organizations, they're very busy, and we were so grateful that they took the time to partner with us. So so we're gonna that'll be followed by 2 scholars who were contributed to the project, and they're going to share their thoughts with you as well. So without further ado, let's head to Aliza, who will talk a bit about community and Havarat Shalom in Somerville. Thanks again.
Hi. Since I'm the first one, I'm going to say that we presented this panel in January, and boy, have things changed. But things haven't changed because we continue to pray together we continue to exist together as a community. Chavarat Shalom is a small lay-led alternative Jewish community that was established in Somerville in 1968. And community is in our name, Chavarat Shalom. You're all probably familiar with the word shalom, which means peace, but also means completeness. The word chavara means community or fellowship. There are a number of different words in Hebrew for that, for community. And they come from different root meanings. So one word, edah, comes from witnessing. Another word, kehillah, comes from gathering together. Chavara means binding. So when we're a community, we bind ourselves together. And I think I've been a member of Chavarat Shalom since 1978. I wanted to be there in 1968, but I was in middle school. They wouldn't let me in. I think that in retrospect, looking over the last 42 years, I find that we've had many, many discussions over the years over what binds us and what is community and how are we a community. There's a paradox in binding, because binding means restricting and tying down. However, it also means looking at those connections. Connections are things that bind. In my answer to how are we a community, I want to just mention some of the things we've learned over the last 42 years about what's a community. Because every succeeding set of years, we learn more about what ties us together and what can bind us away from each other if we're not careful. Probably one of the first things that people learned back in the late 60s is that gender, in terms of male and female, should not be something that limits us. That men and women in our community participate equally. As time went on, we learned that this notion of what's male and what's female extends to our liturgical language. And addressing God and people entirely in the masculine kept us from some kind of community. It kept us from fully experiencing our connection to God. So ever since 1984, we've been working on a prayer book that addresses God and people in English and Hebrew in both masculine and feminine gender. Hebrew is a very gendered language. It's even more gendered than, say, French or Spanish. We learned that if we don't make our building accessible, and if we don't make it accessible to people with visual impairments, with hearing impairments, with environmental allergies, that we're also closing ourselves off from a more complete community. So that's been a focus of ours. And I think the most recent thing we learned is that these days, not only these days, but it's more of a conversation these days, the notion of what gender is and how people identify can also be very binding. And we have tried to open our community up to not only accepting, but actively engaging with people who may have a more fluid gender identity. Believe me, it is a real challenge to write non-gendered liturgy in Hebrew, where every pronoun, every object, every reference has a gender. But mercifully, we have a couple of structures that are non-gendered, and it can't be done 100%, but it's been a really interesting adventure rewriting liturgy. The other thing that I think participating in this project has really sparked is that we also can limit ourselves in ways if we only think about the Jewish people in our community. We have members who have spouses who have no religion, or who have another religion. And once again, here's where that paradox comes into play. There are things ritually that one can only do if one is Jewish, such as be called up to the scroll to say the blessing. However, any possibility of ways to participate that doesn't require one to be Jewish, we open our congregation up to people who are in the households of our members, people who are interested in exploring Judaism, people who are interested in finding out and are on a path to get interested in Judaism. We are not a proselytizing religion. We are actually an anti-proselytizing religion, but we try to be open to people for wherever they're coming from with whatever questions they have. So what do we spend all our time doing? We are primarily a prayer and study community. We have a building, which we now look at longingly from afar. In Somerville, we have services. We continue to have services via Zoom every week. We're joined at our services by former members who may be in New Mexico or in California or in Canada. So that's actually one silver lining to the situation we find ourselves in. I have no idea how long I've been talking, so somebody hold up some fingers, Sharon, give me a number. It's been 4 minutes. Good. We are lay-led. We may have members who are rabbis, but they're not our rabbis. And we study together, we work together, we're a consensual community, so we make our decisions about things anywhere from what kind of heat in the building to how are we going to do our high holiday services by consensus. And I feel that being in this community now and talking about all these other different groups in Somerville is yet another extension of how we in our group Chavarat Shalom feel that we bind ourselves apart and we connect ourselves together through our Chavarat. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thomas, do you want to take it away?
Sorry, my mic was muted. My name is Haiti Thomas. I am the clerk for the board of directors for the Missionary Church of the Haitian Community. We are located in Somerville, at the corner of 10th Street and Mystic Ave. So our address is 100 Temple Street. I'm not a spiritual leader for the church. I'm too shy to be up there every Sunday. I couldn't do it. It is a great privilege for me to take part of this project, which speaks to me at every fiber of my body is about serving and community. It is also something that as a church we prioritize. While we do prioritize our relationship with God, we also prioritize our relationship with the community, because we feel that since the very beginning of the church, it was always about the community. We at the church, while I may not be a spiritual leader, I run the multimedia department for the church. I manage the food pantry, and occasionally I am also a translator because our church consists mostly of youth who were born here in the U.S. from Haitian-born parents. We are an evangelical congregation with the purpose, again, of serving God and community. So our church was the building, not the church. The church is actually older than when we've been in the building. The building was purchased in 2008, but prior to that, the church was all over the place, as far as a place of worship. So I think because of where the church has been, prior to, I joined the church in 2015. But prior to me joining the church, or prior to them purchasing the building, their history also allows us to really have a greater appreciation for the community, because prior to purchasing the temple, we worshipped in various places throughout the Metro Boston area, such as high school gyms or elementary school cafeterias, hotel conference rooms, and even other members' basements, before we could finally purchase a building. So um, being a part of the community has a very big significance to us. Um, so one ways that we interact with the community is to the food pantry that we have, um, to also to ESL classes that we offer. We do have a program. It's not always running. So currently, right now, it is not running, I have to say. But also citizenship classes. So all that is there for any members of the community, if they walk in and inquire about it. Um, so that is a way that we we reach out to the community, not just to evangelism. Um, so another way that we that shows our reliance, dependence on the community. Um, First of all, we are financed or by the community, by the members. We are an independent church. Um, so working with the community is what actually keeps us going, um, from volunteers, um, throughout the Boston area, from volunteers working at the pantry with working with the food bank, Greater Boston Food Bank, to manually load trucks of food and unload them, and serving the community. I think twice a month, every other Friday, we do have food distribution at the church, and everything is done not just by members of the church. Um, Actually, most of the people who work at the food pantry are not members of the church, just members of the community who, um, from various interactions that we've had with them, and they saw fit, or they saw fit to come and be a part of what it is that we are doing. Um, so our church is we have two pastors, um, and I don't think only one of them actually know that that I'm here. He's okay with me representing the church, but because of the long history of the church, he says, just go there. You go in there as the clerk, but most importantly, of somebody who grew up in the community, not as somebody who's been a part of the church. So I have to be sure to mention that, the love for the project actually is why I'm here. Um, I think from the very first minute of Aliza, I think, if I'm sorry if I said the name wrong. From the very first minute she was talking, already it was a learning experience for me. Being from When she mentioned the word shalom, which is a word we use in our church, on a Sunday to Sunday or day to day service, to say peace be with you. But it was actually interesting to also learn that it means completeness, um, to be full, which is what I feel when I am serving the community. I feel complete. I feel at peace. I feel joy, and this is what participating in this project is to me, personally. It's a great learning experience. Before January, when we had the first panel discussion, I would have never thought in a million years that so many different religions, but yet we are so alike. That was one of the biggest takeaway for me, um, um, with this project, and I appreciate the privilege that it has been to be a part of it. I appreciate Sharon for putting it together. Um, from when I first saw her at the church, I never thought that we'd be here. So thank you, Sharon, for putting this together. Thank you, the Museum Association. And thank you for every single one of you who has participated, because as a whole, this is such a great learning experience. And I don't think I can explain just what it means to me personally as a person. It's an opportunity for me to grow, and I feel so grateful to each and every one of you for that. Thank you.
Ooh, Sharon, you're on mute right now.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you so much. Sorry. And Father Adriano, I see you. Could you make some comments?
Okay. My name is Father Adriano. I'm the pastor of the Brazilian community here in Somerville, the Catholic Church, in San Andrew Church in Somerville Avenue, here close to the Market Basket. I was born in Brazil, and I became a missionary in 2012. And I was sent to United States to work at the immigrant community, specifically Brazilians and Hispanic community. I have been here in Somerville. That's my third year as a pastor of the Brazilian community. Our community here in Somerville is basically formed by the Brazilian people. We have services in English and Portuguese. One of the reasons of our community exists here in this area is because to give a service to the Brazilian people who speaks Portuguese. It's a kind of a service of the Archdiocese to attend the Catholics who are immigrants. But otherwise too, one of our goals is not only to teach religious or give the service, the religious service to the people, but is to help people to, as immigrant, to first of all, to be welcome to this country. Second one is to help people to be integrated in the community and having communications with other groups too, because for us, we know that the one who immigrate, they have to learn how to integrate themselves in the local community and make this process in both parts, the immigrants and the ones who already live here, to be part and unite as only one community without beliefs or faith or difference of faith. But first of all, goal is to help people as to be part of the community, you know, and that's one of the ideas about our community and about the community. For us, community is a place to be united together and to welcome not only the ones who profess the same faith as we profess, but to do these communications and relationships working together with the society too. And as part of our ministry, we have the service to help people to access some public programs, welfare and food pantries, to help them to, for example, how to register kids in the school, because many of them don't speak English as well, and they need some help in this case. But just to let you know, this community started in the 1915 with the Italian community. Well, the beginning was formed by the Italian community, and around 1999, when the Brazilian immigration started become a representative number in the Archdiocese of Boston, we decided to start a service in Portuguese to serve the Brazilian community. For us, the idea of community is something that is not only restricted to professional faith, but as part of our culture. We have different programs, cultural programs related to our faith, and because in our country that kind of activities or cultural activities is part of our faith, like some parties, festivals, It's a way that we can share about our identity, our culture, and it's a way to welcome others too. Not doing proselytism, but just a way to be part of this country. That's the meaning. Our founder said, the homeland for us is the country, the land that gives us the bread. And in our case, this our land, our country becomes this country because it's the country that welcome us and give us opportunity to get a good, a better opportunity of life for the future generations in our community. But basically, our community is formed by Brazilian people. We have two other kind of services, as I said, religious, social, and cultural, the three areas that we work as a community. And during those works, we try to give the people some, how can I say, some feelings that they feel. First of all, they have to feel welcome. Second one, we try to make them feel integrated, not only in our community, but with the local community. Second one, we try to help them to feel protected, because many of them has no papers, they are undocumented, and they feel like afraid to go out or to be parts of some groups because they have no papers. No, they are, I don't like this word, but they used to say, I'm illegal. I think so. Nobody's illegal in this land, but as maybe they use this word as a common word to describe themselves. No, but I think so. I prefer use no immigration status. No, that's, I think so, it's more correct. And as I said, promote as to encourage them to, like, for example, learn English, to work, or to get a better possibility to get some work, and to be independent, because if you do not speak English, you will be dependent of someone to translate to you, or many different things, or to access some services in the city. And that's is our community. It's a very simple community, very how do you say, open community, because when we do our activities, we used to invite different people from different communities, and everyone is welcome to be and to celebrate our parties, our festivals. As you know, someone may have heard about our Brazilian festival here in Somerville. It's a large festival when we have different kind of foods from Brazil, and some performance of dances or typical from Brazil, music from Brazil, and what else? That's our community. It's a part of we are.
Thank you so much, Father Adriano. And maybe people might ask during the question period that the parish also runs the Scalabrini Center, which is an amazing local nonprofit.
Yeah.
So Angad, do you want to jump in?
Okay. Justice Scalabrini Center is a non-profit organization formed by us, the parish, and the majority of the service, the social services, running by the Scalabrini Center. No, and when Sharon came to us to propose this project, and we were very happy because it was an opportunity. We know more about others, and others know more about us, and I think so. And that's the way we make the community strong, when we are able to integrate and communicate to others, even they think different us, but the diversity is the richness that we have in Somerville. It's the amazing thing that we have when we are able to walk together, even we are profess different beliefs or faith.
Thank you, Father. Hello, everybody. My name is Singh. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Gurdwara Sikh Sangat Boston, or the Sikh community of the greater Boston area. We first established ourselves in the city of Somerville nearly 2 decades ago, so maybe not as old as some of the other communities who are part of this event today, but we've been around for a while. The community has been growing over the years, and at some point we felt like where we were in Somerville, we actually outgrew that space. So currently we are located close by in the city of Everett. A lot of our community members still reside in Somerville and close by. So today, I have to speak on the importance of community in the Sikh faith in general, and how our institution embodies that, right? So community is such an essential part of the Sikh faith that so in Punjabi, which is the native tongue of most Sikh people, not all though, community translated into Punjabi is Sangat. And you can also see that in the name of our temple, Gurdwara Sikh Sangat Boston. So it is an essential part of the Sikh faith, of how we practice, and the gurus gave so much importance. If I go back to the scriptures, I just ran a quick search yesterday. The word Sangat is mentioned close to 1,000 times in the Sikh scriptures, and quite often in different contexts. It is also mentioned in different forms. Maybe I'll spend a couple of minutes trying to talk a little bit about that. Now, when we talk about the word Sangat, when we just use the word Sangat, there is an implied context over there, which is it is a group of people who are getting together with the purpose of serving God, right? In 2 ways, if I might say, Seva and Simran, which is basically volunteer work, as well as spending time in remembrance of God. These are 2 very important pillars of the Sikh faith. So there is definitely that implied context. A community in general could be a community of people getting together for any reason. But here, the word Sangat does have this implied context. Now, I mentioned that the word Sangat has been used nearly 1,000 times in the Sikh scriptures in multiple forms. I want to highlight a couple of the most frequently mentioned forms in the Sikh scriptures. The first one is Sadh Sangat, which basically means the company of good people. And of course, the word good can be very subjective, based on who you ask. But assuming that, we more or less understand what the word good means here. So it's basically people who are getting together with a common purpose and who not only talk about it, but present that in their actions as well. So, which basically helps motivate everyone who is part of that group, right? When you speak with somebody, who is involved with the community in a certain way, you only get inspired. So, Sadh Sangat, so that is really, I think the way I interpret the scriptures, that's the way we get started with being part of a community. We first focus on our deeds. The other commonly used form is called Sat Sangat. Now, Sat means true or the truth. So Satsangat is basically a true congregation where we talk about truth, where we talk about the true God. In fact, there is so much importance given to the concept of Satsangat that the Sikh guru said that God himself resides in the Satsangat. So if you want to visit me, if you want to see me, if you want to get a glimpse of me, or what you need to do is you need to reach out to a Satsangat, to the true congregation. So if you find such a true congregation, you will find me right there. You don't need to go look for me anywhere in the heavens above. You don't need to make any pilgrimage, go to a different part of the world or anything like that. But if you find a congregation of people who speak of the truth and practice the truth, you will find me right there. So that is the importance of community as per the Sikh scriptures. And of course, we can, something that all of us can relate to is when you have a group of like-minded people. So if I think about a practical aspect of the purpose of having a community or a sangat, it is to have a group of like-minded people from whom you can learn, and you have the support of, we are in different situations every day, all the time. We are not always part of the community, but when we are part of the community physically or online these days, or in whatever ways these days, we basically get that support. We build up that strength, which is important when we go and interact with people in the outside world, and which we want to be part of, but we also want to stick to our principles and our commitment. So that inspiration, that strength, that motivation is definitely derived from being part of that community. It is something which helps us foster resilience. Most Sikh community members that you might find, they are people of color. The men mostly keep beards, wear a turban like I am today. And sometimes, there are testing times when you're outside. To give an example, just yesterday I was reading about a man in Central Florida who has been very active in his community. He's the leader of the local Sikh community, and he's been very active with serving meals to people that are impacted by COVID-19. And he's been doing so much work. Yesterday, he found somebody had this graffiti on his car, with harsh words, and they even wrote the word Sikh. Normally we are used to people, misunderstanding us for something else, but this person clearly knew. But when I was looking at, when I was listening to a press release given by him this morning, he was in very high spirits, and he said that we as a community are going to continue doing what we have to do, what we were doing in the past. We are going to continue doing that. We are going to continue serving the broader community of Central Florida in the ways that we know best. So that, I think, to me, I was thinking about it this morning, that embodies, a perfect example of how being part of a community makes such a big difference. Now, if I talk about, our local community, our local Sikh community, if you, on a typical day at our Gurdwara, we are involved as a community in many ways. One of the biggest ways would be, there is kirtan going on. So there is singing of sermons, of verses from the Sikh scriptures. That's a very important part of our service. And you have community members get together, listening to the kirtan, singing along with the kirtan. Some of them who show interest in learning how to do the kirtan as well. So that is a very important part of what our community does. Another important part is preparing langar, or a community meal. And this is something which I can never stress enough. This is a tradition that has been carried on for 500 years since the foundation of the Sikh faith. Wherever there is a gurdwara, there is langar, or a community meal for anyone who is visiting. Our gurus believe that, you know, there is no point talking about God if a person is hungry within. You know, if the physical needs are not satisfied, there's no point talking about God. That person is not going to pay a lot of attention if you talk about spirituality or God. So, so the community meal is a very important part, no matter where you come from, no matter what socio-economic part of society you come from, you have to sit down together and have the community meal. So anyone, in fact, anyone who visits the Gurdwara, whether they are part of the Sikh community or not, are welcomed, are requested to be part of that meal. And here's where I'd like to give another example of how in the past few months, I see that there's two very important things this nation has been going through. One, of course, is the COVID-19 crisis. And the second one that I would like to mention is the Black Lives Matter movement, of the importance that it has gained in the last couple of months. And one of the things that the Sikh community across the nation has been doing, you know, what I really pride ourselves in, again, is serving meals to people all over. In fact, an organization that I was, you know, talking to people from, they said that so far in the past 4 months, they have served nearly 2 million meals across the nation. So that is, you know, it's all volunteer work. It's nobody who's being paid to do anything. So from start to finish, you know, these meals are prepared by community members, then they're served by community members, they're distributed by community members. So this is all volunteer work. That, of course, is a very, very important part of our community. And then
and God, if it's okay, can this be the final thought? Because I just want to make sure we have time for Celine and Kedrick.
Sure. Sorry, I lost you know, my train of thought. Sorry. So yeah. So then I'll probably finish with, you know, the question with, you know, which is, you know, why is it important to spend time being a part of a project such as this? I think it's very important, especially in these days when the nation or the world is getting so polarized. We need people from different communities to come together, because I do believe that we have more in common than we think we have. And we can only realize and understand that when we get together and have a dialogue. You know, no matter we come from different parts of the political spectrum or any other spectrum, you know, any other aspect that we might think about. I think a forum such as this is an excellent opportunity for us to find ways in which we are common, understand each other, rather than, you know, find differences in any way. With this, I'd like to, you know, thank Sharon for giving me the opportunity to speak. I think you're on mute.
Thank you so much. I keep doing that. Thank you so much. And now we're gonna go to Celine Ibrahim, who ran a great event as part of the project called Talking About Religion.
It's a pleasure to be with all of you today.
Oops. There we go.
Sorry, I think I had unmuted myself, so we must have hit the button at the same time. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And the event, I'm Dr. Celine Ibrahim, the event that I had the pleasure of participating with the Somerville Museum with considered the power of inter-religious dialogue as a mechanism for getting to know one another and building communities. And I think we've heard those themes echoed in all of the other panelists here today. One of the themes that I've heard running through the different speakers and their contributions of their faith communities has been this idea that resilience is found when communities can build their own authentic identities in relationship with other communities who share values, but who might differ very drastically in their practices or in their languages, in the day-to-day activities at their particular centers. So this emphasis on resilience, and also the emphasis on being in community and being of service to one another. So we don't just live next to one another, but we need to create community. And I think that's one of the generative things that this project itself has done, is to enhance the community, create community connections that were maybe ripe for being for being enhanced through these different relationships in the process of this project. The questions, I think, are for any town or any city is how well do we really know one another across these differences, whether they be faith differences in this case, but also race differences, class differences, etc. And I mean, how well are we welcoming one another, both residents who have been in the community for a long time and newcomers? And I think this is one of the questions, the overarching questions that this project invites us to consider. And how are we helping one another to meet our own needs? And in that sense, the father talked about that sense of being independent and needing to learn language skills, for instance. So that that power, it's in our times, I think it's much needed to say that across our differences, we do desire to not only live next to each other, but be in a relationship where we are serving one another, helping one another. And that goes to the core of the major faith traditions. I teach world religions, so I can confidently say that goes to the core of basically every faith tradition that I've so far had the pleasure of studying. For the museum world, I think this is a fantastic way to draw people into the museum who maybe have never crossed the thresholds before, because they can see themselves in something. Their community is represented. There's a sense of value in noticing that the wider community, hey, thinks, you know, we're important. This little community that has maybe only been here 20 years or 30 years or something, is turning the museum into this place of social dialogue and connection. And I think I grew up maybe thinking about museums as some place you went to like look at something on the wall that maybe didn't really reflect much about who you were, but this changing of the narrative of what the museum is, to say, you know, we are the museum, and these are the things that we want to celebrate, that we want to, you know, deeply think about, using the space as not just a place where, you know, individuals go to you know, be inspired or be challenged, but where we all go, where we as a community go to be inspired and to be challenged. I think as well, just listening to the panelists here, you each, you know, left me with things to think about. And Eliza, your modality of non-hierarchical leadership, and like, what can that tell us about how to be in relationship with one another? It's a new modality. It's one that maybe we as greater polities can think about. What does that mean to be in a community where we're thinking actively about inclusion across all of these different identity dynamics? And you know, I don't want to go on because I realize we're pushing our time, but I, as a former chaplain at Tufts University, it was a joy to be able to bring my students to the museum, and I think it also changed some of their impressions of what a museum is or could be.
Thank you so much, Celine. And Kedrick, can you add your comments too?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Cheyenne, for inviting me to think alongside you all. It's an honor to be here with all of these religious leaders and scholars. And thank you to the New England Museum Association as well. Celine, I love your comment that we are the museum. We go there not to look at objects in some ways, but to look at ourselves through this exhibit. So I definitely identify with that. I want to talk a little bit about how projects like Faith in the City create important spaces for collective reflection and meditation in local communities, just like everyone has said here today in a variety of different ways. So I had the pleasure of writing an endorsement for this project in early March, just before everything was shut down due to the pandemic. In my letter, I wrote that, quote, "This project provides space for deep reflection amid the increasing polarization and isolation we face in the present historical moment." So perhaps now, as we have this conversation online, after 4 long months of social distancing and quarantine, that statement rings more true today than it even did back then. Not only does Faith in the City celebrate racial and cultural difference, but it also foregrounds our common human connection to the spiritual realm through a variety of different religious institutions. So far from privileging a particular set of beliefs, Faith in the City features photographs from 20 Somerville religious groups, as Cheyenne mentioned, that represent the diversity of faiths native to the most densely populated municipality in New England, and one of the 20 most populated municipalities in the United States. So in the wake of broader trends toward secularization in cities across America, religious communities here in Somerville have also begun to recede. According to a 2017 joint report produced by the City of Somerville and the Cambridge Health Alliance, Somerville underwent a, quote, "significant drop in religious affiliation over the last decade, with some churches, quote, renting space to newer immigrant congregations coming into the city in order to survive." Faith in the City restores the community spirit of this practice by providing museum space for all religious groups, thereby restoring a vital aspect of our city's heritage and the longer narrative of religious freedom upon which the idea of America was premised. And this echoes Celine's point, I think, quite well. When I heard about this project, I knew I wanted to contribute to it in part because it brings back the moral legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who's a revolutionary leader whose political philosophy I engaged with a bit last semester as a teaching fellow for a course entitled Martin Luther King Jr. and the Question of Conscientious Citizenship. King believed in the power of agape love, and therefore in the possibility of broad-based racial, religious, and class reconciliation, because he held firm to his conviction that the long arc of the moral, or the arc of the moral universe is long, and it bends toward justice. King saw love as a fundamentally creative force that leads to stronger bonds among humans than sterile secular politics and the endless quest for economic profit. Though King, to his core, believed in the authenticity and efficacy of his own Christian faith, he reached out to other religious leaders as well to create diverse coalitions that would eventually accelerate the civil rights movement and forever change the landscape of race relations in the United States. So throughout his body of work, King highlights the nonviolent practices of the Buddhist leader Mahatma Gandhi as a means to express the principles of his Christian love. For King, quote, "Christ furnished the spirit and motivation for nonviolence, while Gandhi furnished the method." So the interfaith outlook of King and Gandhi left an indelible mark on world history, and the seeds for this type of social transformation are present in this Faith in the City exhibition. In fact, I believe Faith in the City and exhibitions like this would be very much in accord with King's vision for celebrating human dignity and creating space for genuine spiritual connection with others that represent what our political spaces should aspire to become. I have no doubt that this project won a national award from the American Association for State and Local History for its important contribution to the legacy of King, Gandhi, and a host of others who provide the civic hope we desperately need in these divided and, yes, in these isolated times. Faith in the City invites us all to renew our search for what King called the beloved community of mutual respect, admiration, and love. Thanks.
Peter, thank you so much. Sorry, I'm sorry. And also, I just wanted to mention that Kedrick leads his own projects at the Somerville Museum. There is a recent interview with him on CBS Sunday Morning that you can Google and check out. It's a wonderful interview with Kedrick about his own work at the museum. So, Meg, do we have time for a couple questions?
Yes, we do. So if folks want to either unmute themselves to ask the question, or if you can ask them in the chat. And it looks like we've got 2 questions. For the representatives from the religious groups, did you see ways that the project impacted your members? And for the museum, how did the project affect your interactions with members of these communities?
Does anyone want to jump in? Well, I guess speaking for the museum, I mean, I think you can tell from hearing everybody's comments today that this was just a great project to work on. And so many people, I mean, everybody's so busy these days. And the fact that people took time to, you know, record their musicians, to share their histories, to allow photographers into their spaces. It was just a terrific partnership that it wasn't something that could be planned, but as it grew, it was just something that was a privilege to work on. And you know, I think you can kind of get the sense from hearing from the different participants today why that would be.
And this is Haiti Thomas. For me, I've always loved serving the community and serving our members, but I have to say, faith in the city is it intensified. Like, let's say, I always have a fire in me to serve, but faith in the city is like a gasoline. You just toss it in that fire. All of a sudden, I just wanna be larger. I wanna serve larger. I wanna serve my community better. I wanna serve my church better. It just makes me want to do better and more.
I think what I'd like to add is actually also a bit similar to what Kedrick mentioned previously, right? That in the light of, you know, the receding importance of faith, of how this project actually still helps us identify how there is so much faith still practiced in the city of Somerville. So I think a project such as this helps us be part of the greater community of Somerville. This is actually the feedback that I've received from a few of the community members based on workshops in the past and based on what I'm experiencing right now as well.
Meg or Scarlett, are there any other questions?
I'm not seeing any other questions come in unless anybody wants to unmute themselves. We are just, oh, Julia, do you have your hand raised?
Yes, thank you. I said this in the chat, but I walked through the galleries and attended past panels of this, including with some of the panelists today, and it was just so beautiful. So thank you. I have a question for the members of various religious organizations and places of worship. Like, how would you, now that some people from Somerville and the surrounding areas have learned a little bit more about either your congregation or group, how would you hope that they continue to learn more and engage and kind of like follow up with what has been really beautiful to learn about so far through you as individuals?
Well, I want to say, first of all, that Celine and I have been chatting privately about our communities doing something together. But, you know, there are so many universals that come up. We talk about service, we talk about study, we talk about prayer. And it seems that you pick any one of those aspects and you invite another community to do that with you. So we don't pray the same prayers, but I actually saw a video on YouTube a couple of days ago for a pluralism class I'm taking right now about a Jewish group and a Muslim group in California choosing to pray together publicly, their own prayers, but in the same place at 5 different places over the course of the day in the Los Angeles area. And the effect that that has not only on each other, but on the world around them. So, you know, pick any little piece of making meals, sharing meals, study, service, and think of ways that we can join together and do that. It's very exciting and hopeful.
So, you know, during normal circumstances, you know, by which I of course mean, you know, when there's not a pandemic or something like that happening, we regularly host people, we host groups, we host a lot of students from universities, from schools, from theology groups, and people from other communities. We do that regularly. I don't know when we will be able to do that next, but you can always drop us an email if you go to our website, if you want online resources, or if you have a question, or you like to learn something about in specific, you can just drop us an email and one of us will definitely get back to you.
Great. Any final questions or responses from any of the speakers? Oh, yep, Polly, I see your hands up. Oop, Polly, you just have to unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. No, I just want to say I missed all of the lectures and things that went on before this. It just happened on this one. I'm just so glad I did, and I feel so much more connected. I've lived in Somerville since 1970, and I feel more connected with the wider community today than I ever have before. I'm just so sad I can't visit your congregation. So I wish there were some central way we could all keep in touch. And the idea of a museum being that, you think of museum as just being relics, but instead having museum be the collective nature of a community is so beautiful. So somehow I hope this goes on.
Well, thank you for sharing, Polly. And Sharon, did you have any final words?
Well, Polly, thank you so much. And there was an interview in the New York Times with Lonnie Bunch recently. And one of the things he said that was about museums having a duty to combine community and scholarship. And something that I've been thinking about ever since I read that interview. So thank you so much, Polly.
We did have one final question come in. It is, was it a challenge with the grants or funders that the project, as you said, had to evolve and not be fully planned in advance?
Oh, thanks. I think that some of the funding we had from the beginning and some we picked up as we went. For example, some of the funding for the music recording came later because it became clear as we were doing the project that needed to be part of it. So we had support from Mass Humanities and from the Boston Foundation, and then we also had support from Club Passim, which has a music grant, as well as the Somerville Arts Council and the Massachusetts Cultural Council. And recently, the National Endowment for the Humanities.
Great. Well, thank you everybody so much for attending today. We will be posting this recorded on our website. I put a link in the chat. And Sharon, I'll turn it over to you to say goodbye to everybody.
Thank you so much for coming. I just want to especially thank the speakers today who took an hour out of their times to talk about their communities with you and how they think about community, and to Celine and Kedrick for just, I mean, both of you are just amazing. So thank you so much, and to Nima for inviting us to be here today.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.